Om Shri Satnam Sakshi, Jai Shri Krishna. Satsang Varkha, Book 7. Compilation of Satsang Discourses of Param Pujya Sadguru Swami Shanti Prakash Ji Maharaj.
Discourse 9. Guru Maharaj Ji said, "The selfless service rendered to saints is always fruitful. One should always serve the saints selflessly with their body, mind and wealth. By rendering such service to the saints, we come across Paramhans, that means an enlightened soul. Preaching about these enlightened souls leads our lives to prosperity." Guru Maharaj Ji narrated a story. Once upon a time, there was a king who did not have any children. One day, the minister advised the king to render service to the saints and take their blessings. Convinced by his wise suggestion, the king built an ashram on the bank of the river. He started offering seva to the saints, and one day a great saint, pleased with his service, gave a fruit to the king and said, "Give this fruit to the queen. You will be blessed with 2 sons." He said to the king that when the boys grow up, one should serve the saints and the other one can rule the kingdom. And the king should also then retire and go to an enlightened saint who can guide him to the path of salvation. After some time, the queen gave birth to 2 boys. The king and queen were very pleased, so they started to serve the saints with even more reverence and faith. Selfless service rendered to saints inspired the king to walk on the path of salvation. From that day, the king started searching for an enlightened Mahatma who could guide him to the path of liberation. The king had heard the name of Jad Bharat, but unfortunately, he didn't know how to meet the Mahatma and how to recognize him. After thinking a lot, he got an idea. There was a neem tree in the garden of the king's ashram. Whenever any saint would come to the ashram, the king would point to the neem tree and tell them that this is a mango tree, and when the mangoes are ripe, they could eat them and then leave. On listening to this, the saints would think the king is insane and they would endlessly argue. The king also thought of another idea. He kept a parrot in a cage at the entrance of the ashram. Every time a saint came, the parrot greeted them saying Ram Ram. After that, the parrot would complain to the saints that the name of Ram is chanted to liberate a soul. But my saying Ram Ram is not able to free me from this iron cage. The saints were speechless. Some saints would advise the parrot, but nothing seemed to work. After a few days, the saint named Jad Bharat finally arrived there. As soon as he entered the ashram, the parrot greeted him and expressed his problem to the saint. With great love and confidence, he advised the parrot to withdraw his senses, hold his breath, and act as if he was dead. The parrot followed the instructions of the saint and did as he said. When the king came, the parrot didn't wish him Ram Ram. When the king touched him, he didn't respond. Thinking that the parrot was dead, the king took the parrot out of the cage and placed him beside a tree. Thus, the parrot was freed from the cage. He flew, sat on the branch of the tree and said, "Jaisa Satguru suniya, vaisa hi ditha." That means, like I have heard of a true guru, I have also found him. He was talking about Mahatma Jad Bharat. The king was amazed when he heard this from the parrot. He understood that the saint was Jad Bharat. So the king bowed and touched the feet of the true saint. However, the king decided to test him one more time so that he was convinced. He pointed to the neem tree and said, "This is a mango tree. When the mangoes ripen, please eat them before you leave." Without arguing, Sant Jad Bharat said, "Sure, he will eat it if it is in his destiny and if God wants him to eat." The king was assured that such a pure saint can only be Jad Bharat. He bowed to the saint along with the whole family. Considering the king to be a true seeker, Mahatma Jad Bharat then preached him to walk the path of liberation. He said, we must be neutral to the three modes of material nature and should not be disturbed by them. We are pure bliss and consciousness. That means Sat Chid Anand. We are immortal non-doers. Thus, imbibing these teachings, the king attained salvation. Guru Maharaj Ji concluded by saying, we all should also follow the path of salvation and free ourselves from the cycle of birth and death. Boliye Satguru Dev Bhagwan ki Jai.